Before I start this review off, let me just say that there's a reason I didn't score the Game Boy games. See, I didn't think I would really need to do this, as, well, they're on the Game Boy. A good game for the Game Boy might be a bad game for a console. Scoring these games implies that they should be compared to the console games, which they shouldn't. I'll give them scores anyway, but just remember that they are Game Boy games, not console games. Don't compare the two. I give The Huge Adventure a 3 out of 7, Entrance a 4 out of 7, and Crash Purple a 2 out of 7. Anyways, on with the review. Alright, I'd like to send a good message to the developers of this game. Dear Vicarious Visions, please stop trying to be Naughty Dog, and not because some incredibly attractive internet reviewer told you to do so, but because you guys fucking suck at it. Okay, wait, before I continue, let me make this small little preface. If you're some 9-year-old little kid who thinks that Crash Nitro Kart is better than Crash Team Racing because it looks better, then I recommend that you turn this video off before I explain to you how much of a fucking asshole you are. Crash Nitro Kart was developed by Vicarious Visions, yes, the same company that made these games. Crash Nitro Kart was designed as the successor to Crash Team Racing. However, the game feels more like a cheap knockoff and less of a sequel. See, when we all started up the Wrath of Cortex for the first time, I'm pretty sure we all thought the same thing. Oh boy, a new Crash game! This is gonna be so awesome! I can hardly contain my excitement! This is gonna be the best Crash game ever!
Oh.
So by the time Crash Nitro Kart rolled around, the initial shock of Wrath of Cortex wore off, and we were ready for a new Crash game. And I gotta say, the intro FMV to this game was fucking awesome. The animations look very nice, and the new models look good this time around. The overall presentation was very nice, and I gotta admit, even knowing the fact that this game would suck, I was still excited to go into it again. This intro was amazing, and is one of the best, if not the best, introduction to a Crash game. Crash and friends are relaxing on Insanity Island. All is well between the Bandicoots when suddenly they are teleported away by a blinding bright light. Meanwhile, Cortex is contemplating with Tiny on ways to defeat the Bandicoots and conquer the world. Cortex asks Tiny to go assist Engine in his lab, when suddenly they are teleported away by a blinding light. Crash wakes up from his nap to discover that his home has been teleported to the center of a large stadium. Cortex has also been teleported to the same stadium and believes Crash to be guilty of sending them there. When Cortex and the Bandicoots go to confront each other, they are interrupted by Emperor Velo the 22nd, voiced by Stephen Bloom. Velo has summoned both teams to his stadium to begin a racing competition. He travels all over the galaxy and challenges people to races. Hey, sound familiar? Velo has threatened that if Crash and friends cannot win the Galaxy Championship, then he will destroy Earth. I have to say, when this intro played, I thought they played their trump card too early. This badass intro was the perfect mix of suspense, humor, and nostalgia. I didn't think the game would live up to it. But, much to my surprise, I was completely right. This game blows. The visuals of this game look excellent, and the models look very nice, and the music, while forgettable, is good. Well, there's just one problem with this game, and that would be the controls of this game. It's an issue of mechanics versus design. Does personable charm rise above satisfying mechanics? Well, in a lot of cases, yes. You could forgive a game like Jak and Daxter or Croc for having stiff controls because the games had nice graphics and good music. These games definitely weren't perfect, but they weren't bad either. However, when you're looking at a racing game, it's an entirely different ballgame. Satisfying mechanics are the absolute top priority in a racing game. If Crash Team Racing's controls were even a little off, we would not hold it high above the crowds of Mario Kart clones. The graphics and music certainly do help CTR, but we don't play racing games to delve into Crash Bandicoot adventures like we would Crash to Insanity. We play racing games to race, and the fact of the matter is, Crash Nitro Kart's controls are laughably terrible. Movement in Crash Nitro Kart comes without satisfaction or pleasure. It feels like it takes forever to gain speed, which is a real pain in the ass considering how fast you can lose it. You brush up against a wall once, and you lose so much speed! But unlike Crash Team Racing, you can't gain speed quickly, so you have to slowly trudge through the race. You get hit with one item, and you're in last fucking place. This game should be fast, but instead it's slower than the fucking Last of Us. Upon starting a new game, you get to choose between two teams, Team Bandicoot and Team Cortex. The character stats this time around are turning, speed, and acceleration. There's no all-rounder class anymore. What's cool though is that you don't need to worry about choosing, as each team is equipped with all three types of characters, and you can change your character whenever you want. Team Bandicoot is Crash, Coco, and Crunch. Team Cortex is Cortex, Engine, and Tiny. Of course, this introduces something in the races known as the teamwork mechanic. Basically, in the race you have a teammate. If you and your teammate stay in close proximity, you'll start charging your frenzy meter. When the meter is full, you get an infinite set of items until the frenzy wears off. However, there's one problem with this. You're not allowed to attack your teammate. Well, obviously not, they're your teammate. But If your teammate beats you in a race, you still lose! Your teammate is more of a threat to you than the rest of your opponents. They're just an opponent who's impervious to your attacks. This can make the races incredibly frustrating, because when your teammate isn't lagging behind in 8th place, they're driving straight into your ass and refuse to go away until you get lucky and drop a TNT on their head. There are only 13 tracks this time around, instead of CTR's 18. The levels are divided upon maps, each of which contains 3 tracks. After you race on the 3 tracks, you get to race a boss. If there's one thing I can definitely say this game does right, it's the boss characters. The boss races themselves suck, but the boss characters are the absolute highlight of this game. The boss's personalities are all unique. It was fun racing against them just to see their cutscenes and how they reacted to losing. The bosses include a shark that has ADD, an alien that has multiple personality disorder, a robot that has OCD, and a monkey that's just an asshole. The bosses were the most memorable part of the game for me, but the regular races were not memorable in the slightest. This can be due to a number of problems with the tracks. They are, for one, way too long. Races can drone on much longer than they did in CTR. Also, I've begun to notice something with the tracks in this game. Strange things are going on here. Really strange things are going on here! The trophy races are a pain in the ass. The teamwork mechanic I mentioned already makes it a chore, but what makes it even worse is the fact that getting hit by only one thing causes you to fly back so far in the race. If you get hit by one missile, you're in last place. Keep in mind, I'm not new to this game either. I've had this game since launch, and I beat all of Oxide's times on CTR, and the fact that the trophy race of the first level is hard does not speak well for the rest. And then there are the CNK challenges, and fuck these. These are basically Nitro Kart's version of the CTR challenges, and they are terrible! You know what's worse than having to slowly trudge your way through a boring racetrack? Having to slowly trudge your way through a boring racetrack while collecting letters. The letters this time aren't hidden in good spots though. The letters of CTR were normally found somewhere along the main path, but in this game it feels like they deliberately drive you off course just to get the letters. Like, look at this fucking crap. Even if you can get the letters, you still have the challenge of completing the race, which is a fucking chore considering how goddamn long it takes you to get moving. Some of these letter locations are ridiculous! Like on Thunderstruck. Fuck this. This goddamn level took me over 50 tries, and it was to get one letter! The controls of this game are absolutely atrocious. See, with CTR, I can comfortably pull off tricks like this. But with Crash Nitro Kart, it takes me an abnormally large amount of tries to access a single shortcut or jump. The relics in this game suck as well. I mean, I'd rather do a time trial on Jungle Boogie than do one on Coral Canyon or Mad Bombers, but is that really saying much? The controls suck so much it doesn't really matter. The boxes are put in such asinine locations, oftentimes off the main path, requiring you to slow down or turn around to reach them. And then there's the issue of the final boss. Fuck this final boss. I love Velo as a villain, but as a boss he is fucking aggravating. Get this for bullshit. The final boss takes place on a brand new track. Wow! Yes, I do know that Crash Team Racing introduced a new track late into the game, but they didn't make you fight a boss on it! It's hard. It's so fucking hard. But not good hard like Crash 2's Death Routes, but more like unreasonably hard, like Crash 3's Relics. Seriously, the last time I saw a final boss this fucking unfair, I was playing the Strider battle in episode 2. I mean, for shit's sake, Wrath of Cortex's final boss was better than this. This game has a wide array of multiplayer modes, including versus races, arcade races, and even team races. There's also a number of games to choose from in the battle mode. It's all very nice, but there's just one problem. The controls still suck. I don't care about the multiplayer because I can barely stand playing this goddamn game alone. Why would I want to make my friends suffer? In terms of graphics, this game actually looks pretty good. The levels look vibrant and colorful, and I would really like time to admire them. The problem? I can't in the middle of a goddamn race! The character models look nice, and so do the carts. In terms of graphics, I really can't complain that much. In fact, Crash Nitro Kart actually excels in this aspect. However, there's one bit that looks really bad, and that would be Uka Uka's talking head. Guys, this was okay back then because CTR was made in 1999, not 2003. The voice acting is also good in this game. This game is unfortunately the last game to have Clancy Brown's Cortex. While I do like Lex Lang's Cortex a lot, I will miss Clancy Brown. None of them really get in my nerves. Oh, and before I jump to the next topic, is it just me, or does this guy sound exactly like Muscle Man?
It weighed about 300 pounds and smelled like a pile of butts.
The soundtrack to this game is pretty forgettable. It's good, just not very memorable. It's not gonna annoy you while you play it, but it's not gonna stand out either. This game doesn't have a custom theme for the bosses or arenas. There is one more thing about this game that annoys me, and that is the load times. This game takes forever to load. Now, it doesn't take as long as Wrath of Cortex does, but since Nitro Kart is a much faster paced game, it makes the load times feel longer. Also, load times show up more frequently. If you want to get into a race on adventure mode, you have to wait for the map to load, wait for the track to load, wait for the trophy podium to load, and then wait again for the map to load. Some of you might say, "Oh, that isn't bad, you need to learn to wait." Oh, it's not? Then let's sit through that and see how fun it is. Oh, I'm sorry, did I interrupt my review with this big space of nothing? Guess what? That's the entire game in a nutshell. Crash Nitro Kart is to Crash Team Racing what Wrath of Cortex is to Warped. While the game does look very nice and it sounds great, it falls short because of its horrible controls. Crash Team Racing feels responsive, fluent, and rapid, while Crash Nitro Kart feels slow, clunky, and restrained. If you're looking for a good racing game, I'd skip this and pick up a copy of Crash Team Racing. I give Crash Nitro Kart a 2 out of 7. Now, Crash does not look like he's doing well. This game could be the end of the line. Crash had a good run back then, but it looks like his glory days are over. Could Crash redeem himself with his next title, or is it game over? Tune in next time when I review Crash to Insanity.
Again, it's like poetry, so if they rhyme, every stanza kind of rhymes with the last one. Hopefully it'll work.